There we
And
go.
recording is in progress. All right. So, welcome everybody who is joining us here today for building repeatable marketing and sales processes. As you can see, our panelist, our speaker for today, Laura, is already here. So, welcome, Laura, and welcome to all everybody who is here for this session. So, to kick us off, if my slides ever load, there we go. To kick us off, we acknowledge the lands which constitute the present-day city of Mississauga as being part of the treaty lands and traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Seneca and Attawandaron and wider Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat First Nation. We recognize these peoples, the Anishinaabe, the Ojibwa, nations within the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and all other peoples who inhabited these lands since time immemorial. The city of Mississauga is home to First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. As a municipality, the city of Mississauga is actively working towards reconciliation by continuing to strengthen our relationship with Indigenous communities. We formally recognize the Anishinaabe origins of our name and continue to make Mississauga a safe space for all Indigenous peoples. With that said, our agenda for today, I'm going to do a quick introduction to Mbek and our Scale Up series. I'm going to introduce our speaker, Laura Dunkley, who is here with us. And then Laura will jump into her presentation, and then we'll have time for your questions at the end. So, Mississauga Business Entrepreneur Center, or Mbek for short. We are part of the City of Mississauga's Economic Development Office. If you are starting a business or a new venture, then please feel free to connect with us. We are your central source for small business information, resources, and guidance. We provide support and services remotely currently because of the pandemic, and our hours are Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We provide things like free business information and guidance, webinars and workshops like this one that you're attending today, other resources and tools, other training and mentorship programs, and other entrepreneurship programs as well, including things like the business advisory services and our digital Main Street program, our Starter Company Plus program, and in the summer, if you're a student, the Summer Company program, and other additional training and workshops, which you can find at this link that you see on screen. So you can check out our upcoming events, webinars, and workshops there. And you can also take a look at the recordings of our past webinars and workshops. So if you missed anything, or if you wanted to go back to reference anything from previous webinars and workshops, the recordings are at that link. Please feel free to go ahead and check that out. At the end of the day, we are here to help. So I am John Lam, an entrepreneurship and innovation specialist. You can ask me anything about entrepreneurship and innovation. Please feel free to reach out. We also have Susan Lovelace, who is our small business consultant, and of course, Laura Dunkley, who is our digital marketing consultant. So please feel free to reach out to us. And of course, we have Laura here today to talk to you about this topic of repeatable marketing and sales processes. And she encourages you to reach out, for anything about digital marketing as well. And of course, feel free to contact our general email or give us a phone call at the number right there, or check out our website for more information. Also, please feel free to follow us on social media. Lots of good stuff. So if you want to keep up to date with what's going on, then social media is where you can find us at Mississauga EDO. Now, about this Scale Up series, so lots of exciting things happening, and this session on repeatable marketing and sales processes is actually part of a series of 8 learning sessions that constitute this Scale Up series, and it is capped off in 2022 by mentorship, pitch practice, and a pitching opportunity. And this series, this program pilot is designed to help innovative companies using Industry 4.0 practices. So if you're a scaling company, it's defined as either having between $100,000 to $2 million in revenue, or if you have patents or you're patent pending, or if you've raised pre-seed or seed capital, this is the program for you. This program is especially meant to support innovative companies who are founded by or led by individuals from underrepresented communities. You'll receive these learning sessions as listed here. And if you qualify for that scale up definition that was previously mentioned, you are also eligible for the invite only sessions in January and February, which include Meet a Mentor, check-in and pitch prep, and a pitching opportunity. So if those three are of interest to you and you think you're eligible and you fit into that scale up definition, please feel free to reach out. Would love to chat with you more and would love to invite you to those sessions in the new year as well. So onwards to our speaker for today, Laura Dunkley, Mbek's very own digital marketing consultant. Laura has extensive experience as an entrepreneur and has extensive experience in the marketing world as well. She has a lot to share about repeatable marketing and sales processes and how you can build these processes to help your company grow and to continue to scale. And Laura encourages you to reach out because beyond what we have to share today at this session, she's happy to work with you to help you build your repeatable marketing sales process and help you to evolve them as well so that you can continue to grow your company and continue to scale. So please feel free to reach out to Laura. The slides that you will see will be included as a handout. So Laura will be reviewing the information, but you don't need to feel obligated to frantically copy down or write down any of the notes. This is going to be a very lively conversation between us as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand off the virtual microphone to Laura. Welcome, Laura.
Great. Thanks, John. And thanks everyone for joining. I recognize some of the names on the list. So welcome back to all of you. Welcome also to anyone watching the replay. So please feel free, as John mentioned, to reach out to me afterwards if we miss any questions or you want further assistance. So John, exciting topic. And marketing and sales is a huge part of our business, doing business, and we'll work through that step by step. So I just want to also mention again that today's presentation is really just a walkthrough of the handout. Normally we don't have so much text on a presentation, but I was pretty excited putting all of this together going, you know what, we need a checklist. That's one of those things when it comes to these processes. And as I was going through the exercise, realized it's big. So having this checklist, I hope will help all of you understand the importance of doing. And I do actually started as sales and marketing. I realized I kind of switched it, but these repeatable processes should help you as you grow your business. So I am going to just share my screen. So feel free to drop any questions in the chat along the way, because we do hope that this is a great conversation and it is a lot of content. So if I miss anything or you don't understand anything, just drop it down to all panelists. John's going to monitor the chat in case I miss anything, and want to make sure that we cover all the bases for you guys. So sales and marketing, building repeatable processes. Let's get started. I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. As part of this handout, we're going to talk about building and leading your sales and marketing team, because this is why we need repeatable processes, right? As we scale, we need to be able to communicate to our team. When it's just yourself, it doesn't really make a difference as much, even though it is advantageous, but it really is crucial for setting the stage as you build your team. So we're going to talk about that, and developing playbooks for your sales and marketing. And that's really where the process comes in. So I've expanded it beyond that so that you can actually have playbooks and a list of what to be included in a playbooks and how those processes fit in, and how sales and marketing really work together, which is crucial. Target audience personas, I'm dropped something in there because you need that in your playbook as well. Templates and resources. I'm going to talk about where you can create those templates and what resources you need to support your processes. And then I'm going to put in a scenario, a real life scenario with the client where the repeatable processes that we developed was crucial to his success immediately. It was incredible when you get to see those results right away. And then, of course, technology and automation is a big part of how we can make these processes work for your organizations. And then we'll tie it up with some key takeaways. So let's get started. So what are repeatable processes and why do we need them anyways, right? So basically a repeatable process is a set of actions that can be easily duplicated. And what that is it's business flows, it can be templates, processes, whatever that is. It's the reason is we're going to duplicate it so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time, which takes a lot of time. So when there's an opportunity to be more efficient, that's where these processes come into play to help you with your business. And why do we even bother? Because the cost of doing business, sales and marketing, 15 to 35% of your corporate costs. So if we can save time and save money, we're going to do it, and it's worth the effort. It might take a lot at the beginning to get those processes started, but once the engine starts going, then all of a sudden you start to see those benefits. So as you start to scale, and even as you continue to scale, you will always be optimizing these processes as new processes come in, new templates are created, and then it just adds. And so you review and add. And the stats down below basically just said when they did this research, most CMOs and I'm sure CSOs, the corporate, so the marketing officers and the sales officers, they spend a lot of time reviewing plans, having meetings, updating things, and they would just rather be working on things that are more strategic. So if we can automate and create these processes and give our VP of sales or VP of marketing more time to actually do things that matter, that's the whole goal of repeatable processes. And at the end of the day, the key things, and we'll remember that as we go through, if it becomes overwhelming, remember that repeatable processes will improve your efficiency, helps you maintain quality of control. And this is big when it comes to growing your business, because all of a sudden you have 10 people and there's no processes in place, then all of a sudden things start to go off in their own direction. So we want to make sure that as things, the processes are in place, that the repeatable ones also are there in place so that you can maintain that quality. And it supports that growing company. So as you start to hire, and of course, improves communication, which is the foundations of any growing business. So building and leading a sales and marketing team. What does this look like? As you guys start your business as the startup, you wear so many hats, right? You are the founder, but you are also the growth manager, the product manager, the chief operations, and all of this, including VP of marketing and sales. So the whole idea of this is to understand you wear many hats, but as you grow, you can't continue to wear all those hats. So you will start to hire people on, and this is the point of the scale up. Of these repeatable processes to help you through that. Currently, undoubtedly, you have professional advisors, including accountants, lawyers, business coach, and investors. That's part of your team, and they are key stakeholders in helping you build these processes and build your business. As well, remember that you will also be outsourcing. So you'll have contracted help like a marketing agency, IT support, potentially a virtual assistance. And then at some point, if you haven't already done that, you're going to have that internal team. And this sample org chart is kind of that starting point for growth. And and in my experience, what I've seen the most effective hires as you manage the contracted work and your business professional advisors, even though you directly will be talking to their professional advisors, that contracted work to manage that outsourced work is going to be helpful if you have a coordinator internally, a sales and marketing coordinator. Eventually, a sales coordinator and a marketing coordinator would be helpful because that helps you stay organized. It helps keep the communications going, and they have some expertise, maybe not senior expertise, especially as they're, say, working with the marketing agency. What they'll be able to do is they collect information, they're talking to you all of the time, and they can make sure that the marketing agency has that information. Really helpful. And then when you start to do your sales, build out your sales team, potentially if you might want a sales rep, and that will be a junior sales rep, maybe if you have sales and marketing experience, or you have someone on your advisory team that has sales and marketing experience, and that way your capital outlay isn't quite as crucial, as big as hiring someone senior. The other reason is if you hire someone junior getting started, you also have to manage your load. So if a senior person's coming on, they're going to be bringing a lot of connections with them, right? Their network, their development, they're going to come in and they're going to want to hit the ground running, and you have to be able to respond to the sales that they drive to your organization. And if you can't handle that sales that senior person's bringing on, then that's a problem too for customer relations, for even your credibility and reputation. So make sure you think through whether or not what stage you're at as far as being able to handle the sales. And that's where it takes a lot more conversation. And the big thing is to make sure that you tap into your network of professionals to get advice on what stage you're at and who you can have. So that's just an idea of getting started with that. And one of the it's more of an HR process rather than sales and marketing, but it affects sales and marketing, and that would be your employee handbook. That would be something, the result of developing these types of processes, right, in your handbook. But if you can replicate these, make these repeatable, it will help you move from hiring one person to 10 people to 20 people. It's crucial. And what within that handbook would include your onboarding processes, communication standards. This is something that people forget too until somebody calls them out on it. It's like, so when I email you, what's my response time going to be? Are you available for that? Is it better to email you or text? Am I using MS Teams? All of those questions you're going to want to put down so that standard can be in place, and that will manage your team's efficiency, but also your client relationships. Training, the onboarding, how is training going to be? And then how are you going to do your performance reviews? Put them all together, they become repeatable. And those tips, I'll leave this with you to read afterwards, but basically just remember that time zones, cultures are things that you have to remember. Make sure that you're very succinct in your writing and keep all of these up to date, and file your employee handbook across all of the playbooks and handbooks. Make sure they're in a central place, that they're accessible to everyone that needs to be, and update them accordingly. And if you are doing the training piece, this is a really cool platform, but only one example. If you hear about LMS, the learning management systems, that's someplace where potentially that repeatable process. So if you're onboarding somebody, it's a learning management system where you can put all your documents and even have people check through as they go so that you know what they've read and understand, and that way it's documented for future reference, and it's repeatable because it's the same onboarding process for everyone. This company happens to have an employee support if you're at that stage and want help. There's even a case study, which was interesting to see if it's, because all of this takes a lot of time, and you definitely want to know if it's worth the effort, and there's a lot of case studies showing that it is. So let's get started on getting these developed. What do we need to think about? So what you need to consider first and foremost before you do anything is to review your business strategy. What are your goals? Where do you want to go? That's going to help you in developing and prioritizing what processes need to be put in place. Who's going to be on your team? What information do you already have? Things that are you doing well? What resources are available as well, as far as the content and processes and resources? And also think of things like culture, because as you start to bring things on, even the language you use in your documents will help support that culture. You just You just need to understand, because you're going to want to hire the right people. It'll affect your job descriptions. It'll affect how you do the onboarding process, all of those things. So just take those into considerations, and make sure you also tap into your expert panel, your advisories, as far as your salespeople, marketing and comms people, your subject matter experts, even vendors might help in that area. And then those other business advisors that you have, including your financial and accounting, legal, and HR when you're building these out. So that's for all of our handbooks, employee handbooks and playbooks. Make sure you think about that. So let's tap into the sales one first. What do we need? And that's where part of that playbook that you're going to have on file, and you probably won't update this very often, the company info, but make sure anyone you're bringing on board has an understanding of what that mission and vision and your core values are, where you plan to go, just that high level of what your company, what problems you're going to solve for your clients. So make sure that's detailed. There's a whole other list here of things for you to potentially include. Doesn't mean you have to include all of these, but even things like sales methodology. Is there a style of selling that you want to do? And that goes back to culture and things like that. Now, if you aren't a sales and marketing person or salesperson and you don't understand that, there are some best practices out there. Have a look, or maybe you save that and don't put that in until a senior person comes on board. And understand this is an evergreen document. It is going to be updated regularly. So the next one is that target persona. Is crucial to have. And these are the kinds of questions that you want to answer. Make sure that's put in there, the challenges you're solving, the purchasing motivators for them. You're going to ask all these questions, and marketing is going to be a key component of this. Your marketing team will do this. If you don't have someone on staff, this might be something you want to outsource to a marketing agency to help you develop. And at the end of it, the persona will be in there. Maybe you'll have some high level points that you have in there, but also that persona, that avatar of your ideal client. And you might have more than one. And so that sales book, the next thing, and crucial to the repeatable processes, is your sales processes. And these are the guiding questions that you want to ask yourself. You know, what stages of your sales funnel, because there's some listed down below. They're just an example. Everyone has different stages, but they all basically move people through the funnel. What do you want people to do throughout each of those stages? Where even do they get their leads? How do you qualify a lead? How do you forecast? All of those are things that you're going to put into your process, and that might be repeatable for different stages. So if you have this for the prospecting stage, you might repeat it in like the structure, the template. So this is one individual process that you want to make sure that you have in your sales. And the tools that you need to do, you need to have the CRM, a proposal software, potentially calendars. You want to have a list of things for people to support you in your sales processes. And then those resources, have a list of these. You're going to see why this is really important as we go forward, because how is sales going to work with marketing? So clients, the things that they need are case studies, how to use, white papers, testimonials. All of those types of things will be available to your sales team. Your marketing team is going to help you build them out. Now, where the repeatable piece comes in is when you have a case study in the marketing world. This will be coming more from the marketing. You'll see this, but a case study is in place, and it's going to have a structure. It's going to have a template. It's going to have who the job is for, what were the challenges, what is the solution. Maybe you have a testimonial, and then maybe you have results. You'll have a whole template in there. The important piece here is that the sales team has to know where that template is, and there has to be a process in place for gathering the information, because if they're doing the project, they are the ones that are going to collect the information, put it into the template, give it to marketing. All of a sudden marketing is, this is great, I don't have to ask you every single time. Marketing can put the case study together, gets posted up on the website, and then it's accessible, and they maybe make a PDF. Now sales has that case study. Do you see how all of a sudden, if there's a template in place, that case study comes from the development of the content, the work done, content goes to marketing, it's created, and it's repeated each time. It saves a lot of work, and case studies can be a crucial piece of moving clients through that stage of decision and consideration. So that's just one example of how these processes, it's in your playbook, but it becomes crucial for repeatability and time savings. And these are some of them here for the sales team specifically. These are some resources that they have: proposal templates, battle cards. I have an example of that below. Scripts, things like that are all going to be within your sales playbook, where you can actually have the templates. Someone can pull out that template and go, okay, the script, here's an example of the script. I'm just going to tweak it based on the product I'm selling or who I'm selling to. The pitch deck, marketing would probably help you with the pitch deck. You're going to have access to that. So when you need to do a pitch or presentation to a potential client, you're not designing it from square one. You're not reaching out to marketing every single time to do a pitch deck. You're going to have that in, you're going to plug it in. There's going to be descriptions of how to use that pitch deck. And I even have an example coming up for that. So that's the whole idea of, if you first have to start with that playbook, what do you need? And then what are those templates and those processes that we can create to be repeatable? And there's the example of templates. So this is a template of a battle card. Really cool. And basically it's just a product feature document that can even look like a PDF for each one, or it's that can go out to all of your team. It's just to know how to sell a particular product. So if you have someone coming on board and they're a new salesperson, they can hit the ground running because they all of a sudden have all of these product feature things. And if you start to bring on more product, you just take that battle card and you update it. So there's the repeatability. And here's an example of a presentation slide. If you're just getting started, these are really great. It's a great resource, and Vado has so many samples up there. Even if you want to look to see what's included in a typical presentation slide, they have wonderful examples. So if you're just starting as a really small team, you can just download it, put it into a presentation slide, file it up somewhere in your central file area, Dropbox, Box, whatever that might be. And then if it's your marketing team, you want to have some quality control on what that presentation looks like, right? And sales sometimes doesn't have that. They just want to get the information out, but you know that you want to maintain that brand quality. So what I would suggest is creating a master slide deck and throwing into your first slide in the some instructions on your brand guidelines, what you can do, what you can't do, and that way every time sales opens up that slide deck, that information is there. And that's one way that you can maintain the quality. Sales proposal, very similar way. Envato has those, and you can download templates to be used for yourself. Now, the challenge with proposals in a Word document, it's not as efficient, but it's there. So as you grow, remember that there are proposal builders such as PandaDoc, which I'll show you afterwards, that can help you fill that out in a little bit more repeatable and easy access. But for now, even if you had a Word document up there, Word is sometimes a challenge when it comes to design, Word or Pages if you are a Mac user. So do the same as you did with the presentation slide, download it, have marketing, create the brand with some guidelines around it, and throw it up into a central filing system as a template. So PandaDoc is somewhere that if you want to get to that stage, that proposal, where it's up in the cloud, it has an extra cost to it. You can create templates, but it integrates with your CRM, which is really cool for that efficiency for your sales and marketing to go together. And your marketing playbook. So this is where the fun comes in. I have quite a bit of experience in this area. For your handout, so the gray is where you could potentially use templates. The yellow highlights where you will create potential processes. So brand guidelines, they just sit up there. They're in your playbook. Make sure it's accessible to everyone is your brand guidelines. Customer journey and persona, that's templates. That's where your personas, when you're doing an exercise, if a new target audience comes up, you can quickly repeat that and develop it and customize it for whatever audience that is. Social media policy is pretty set in stone, but the escalation piece is what happens on social media. So if something comes in and there's a challenge, who do you go to for approval before you put out content? Who do you go for approval before you respond to maybe a troll message? All of those things will be really helpful as you scale, whether you have an internal marketing team or you've hired out to a marketing agency. They can help you with this, but they will, when you hire them on board, you'll say, okay, this is our escalation process. And now your marketing agency can hit the ground running, and it potentially will save you, it mitigates your risk, but it will also save you a lot of time if you have this in place before you hire. Marketing campaigns, events, tactics, how you gather content, similar to what I mentioned about a case study. All of those are processes and many of them are templates. So have a look of these. And this is where I do encourage you, if you want to reach out to me to evaluate any of this marketing piece, I'm happy to help you with that as well. So marketing tactics, that is a key thing. Asana is a project management tool. If you want to have other project management tools, they're all very similar. But what that allows you to do, every time you have a tactic, so you take it from your marketing plan, you have a tactic like email marketing or events can be a tactic as well. Any of those specific things you want to do, you can create a template as a project and then duplicate that template. So now you know the admin, how are you going to socialize it, what are those documents need to be due, the processes, and it's all there. So you just plug it in every single time you do an event. You just duplicate it and it's all there. It really is helpful, saves a ton of time, and and then that way you as the senior person can oversee it, and you know when someone duplicates it, they know exactly what to do. So that maintains that part of the quality and improves your communication. And make sure that marketing knows the sales processes because they're very important and critical to supporting your sales team. Like that's the role, is basically they work on inbound marketing from a lead generation area and even the e-commerce piece, but sales requires a lot of these templates to be created. They need lead gen. A lot of the lead gen comes from the website. So sales and marketing has to work very closely together to make sure they understand that in the playbook. And this is part of the HR piece, and all the tools and admin passwords and things like that needs to be available for them. Do we have any questions, John, on the way here, or?
I don't see any in the chat right now, but I do have a question for you, Laura, because
Yes,
there's this is very daunting. Like there's a lot to put together. So what
I know.
suggestions do you have for, perhaps prioritizing smaller elements, or for, what advice do you have for small teams, and how they can perhaps take bite-sized aspects to kind of chip away at this task of putting the playbook and the repeatable processes together?
It is daunting. And that goes back to, I think, first and foremost, you need to figure out your organizational goals. What resources do you have? And what are those goals, those long-term but short-term goals? And that's going to help you prioritize what processes that need to be put in place. So if you're just starting and you need to generate revenue, you need to make sure that that intake process is happening, or else you're not going to be able to get things happening. You're also simultaneously do have to work through that whole workflow because you need your accounting piece. And those are the two critical ones typically at the beginning. As far as the marketing goes, all of those can be cultivated over time, right? Like it's just the main. I mean, if you don't repeat them right away, and sometimes you have to do them for a while to figure out what works and what doesn't work. If you hire a marketing agency, that's one of the easiest things to do right away. And I would encourage, if you're not a marketing person, to outsource that strategic part to make sure whatever agency you're working with has a strategic person to help you planning and manage that. And that way, and then that's where it goes back to that hiring a marketing coordinator, because they're just going to tell you what they need. And they can even help you developing the processes along the way. So that piece then now gets moved out and you're outsourcing it and you're building that. That intake process is really your own. You need to figure that one out. Oh my goodness, it's so crucial. So your accounting person, your legal team, what purchase agreements do you need to put in place? What legal agreements do you need to put in place? And then where are those leads coming from? Are they coming from your website? Where do they go? How do you manage the clients? So that initial intake is typically the priority. And it is a really good segue because I'm going to show you a scenario, just that as this person, this individual is scaling his business. And even though he's not your typical scale up, maybe not in tech and not planning to ramp, it'll be more of that step up growth stage. It all is the same. You just have to do it quicker,
Mm.
right? Does that make sense, John?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, take too much time away from the scenario. One question that I think actually acts as a very good segue, that was submitted by an attendee, for an early startup, what aspects would you focus on first? And I'd add on to that question, how does that differ if you're an early startup or a step up or a scale up? You mentioned that it's all the same. So I'm really interested to hear more about the nuance, about each stage. So I'll leave it at that, for that question, and then we can jump into the scenario because I'm sure the scenario will kind of answer that question.
Yeah, and it goes back to it's the rate, the pace you have to do. So scale ups, right, are going up quickly as I'm learning and understanding about the scale up versus a slow growth organization. You just have to get on board really quickly. So it's the pace is probably the most critical. But if I don't address that, let's revisit this at the end for sure. So the scenario, for example, is a consulting business. And the challenge was they're spending a lot of time on discovery calls, and potential clients that are coming through when they get to that discovery calls, they're not qualified. It's like I just spent half an hour, or I spent an hour talking to this person, and I can't even help that person. So the next steps that were taken is that we did an audit. It's like, okay, so where are these leads coming from? Is there something we can do to improve upon that and save time on the discovery calls? So that is that intake process that I mentioned. And this can be used for so many things. If anyone was on my email marketing, they'll recognize this because you can take this audit um, template and use it for even how to set up your email marketing sequences and to optimize for one specific tactic. So we took this template and new client, it was for the new client intake process, and it helps us audit. So what you have to remember, and I'm going to actually go through all of them quickly here, is awareness, consideration, decision, purchase, and loyalty. That's that typical funnel for marketing. Remember, so that's what they move and going through. But it can also, it's basically a replication, different language of the sales process. So what we want to know is is your customer doing, thinking, doing and thinking through that process. So if they are doing, what are they doing? They're looking for a consultant at that time. They're talking to people who worked for this consultant, and then they want to make the decision. So it's like, I just want to call the consultant and find more details. And then we get into the purchase and loyalty, which is a total separate session beyond the intake. So we'll just focus on the top three. And they're asking for pricing and when they are delivered. But what are they thinking about? We got to get into their headset. What is that really, that information they need? So they need to find someone. They want to know what they've done before. Does it match what my need is? And then then they go on, what they're thinking about is they want to review more information about their specific needs on their website. Do they have pricing? It's that kind of things. Those are the things that client needs to know before they make their decision. And where are the touch points coming from? They come from potential client network. They also come from the website. Weaknesses. So this is where the audit comes in. It's like, okay, so let's look at your current processes. What is the weakness? Particularly under the decision part, that people are reaching out on the contact form for discovery call, and they're not qualified. There's no way to pre-qualify them currently beforehand until they either talk on the phone with that person or send them an email. And that is where the opportunity now comes. Okay, so we can add more information to the website and update the contact form to collect more information so that they can pre-qualify them even before the discovery call. It's a bit of an exercise, but if you don't see the big picture, you can't pull it down into figuring out what that weakness and opportunity is. Now you can take this for any process that you want to audit, and it will help you optimize it. So the next stage is we basically had all these guiding questions. Where are they coming from? What do they want to know? How are you getting the leads? All that information, through that on Miro, we developed this intake process. So now it's actually, the result is it's mapped out. We looked through it and we updated the business consultation form. So the results from this was that we actually developed a process that wasn't there before, and it's documented. Then we updated the form because now it can be pre-qualified before it even comes in to the person who needs to approve it or not. And then we reviewed the whole discovery call. So rather than spending a whole hour talking with someone ahead of time, we developed those key questions so that within 30 minutes they can get the information to figure out if they're going to take that person on or not. And then they didn't have a CRM to collect all the client information. So that was crucial because there was people that maybe weren't qualified right away, but were long-term. So now we can actually track it in the CRM, the customer relationship management tool. And then we also clarified who was going to qualify, who was going to manage the administration in the beginning. None of that was done. It was taking a lot of time. And now there is a process that's put in place. So as they build out their consulting team, it's all there in their playbook. So that is just one example. And this is where you do need to prioritize and make sure that it is strategic in whatever you do. Has to support definitely those urgent goals. Like if this is a problem right away, and an immediate win. Feedback was it worked right away. Like within 2 weeks, they were starting to notice that the qualifications were better coming through. So this is an amazing win and a process that can be repeated. So I hope that gives you an idea. And we can come back and revisit that question, John, afterwards. So leveraging technology is crucial. As I mentioned, the CRM, this is another daunting spreadsheet, but you kind of have to figure out where those processes are. Blue is your sales processes, and green is your marketing. So where are they coming in? What is marketing doing to help you reach your goals? And what is sales doing? And then the gray piece is all that admin stuff at the back. You have to map that out of the tools you think you need, the processes, to figure out what tools you need, because you can get the budget for adding all these tools on is extreme. So you do need to prioritize what those are. The sales CRM and the website CMS, which is content management systems, crucial. Like if you're scaling, you got to have those, right? Like those, it's not even an option. And if you don't get started soon, it's the foundation. It will become chaotic really quickly. So make sure that you've figured that one out and then you move from there. So that's the first thing, is to map out that workflow. And then when you have to actually pick the technology, the things you have to think about: pricing, right? Efficiency. Is it going to scale with you? Does it meet your needs? Is what integrates with what? And that's the CRM. Almost everything integrates nowadays because of APIs, or even if you use Zapier or things like that. But the integration process and how well it integrates, is it best of breed with what you have? So integration is key. Easy to learn and use. This will help with the adoption. If you yourself are struggling with it, how hard is the rest of your team going to be doing this? That's really an important piece, is that usability and that usage. If you are going to bring something on for the CRM, or maybe let's use a better example, a project management tool. So if you have a project management tool, can sales and marketing use it? Can your financial department use it? Will sales and marketing use it at the same time? Because all of a sudden now, if it can be used enterprise-wide, then it's definitely more worth the value, right? If it's just sales specific, then you have to consider, is it worth the effort for just your sales team? But it might be. That's part of your evaluation. What are those required fields, and what are those features, and what are those value add? So if you have to have it, that's the first thing you have to look at. And then if this is really nice to have, then it's an added bonus. And then definitely look for security and privacy as part of that. And before you get started, that list, just take your workflow and map it out in a matrix. If I had had time, I would have created a matrix for you, but I didn't. So just take an Excel spreadsheet and start to map it out and put the little check marks. And then you'll go, oh, okay, so look, this has more check marks, and then put your price across the end, and you'll start to evaluate it. That's where your accounting person needs to come in place and say, can I afford this? And then what's the priority? What can I do? So the CRM, as we mentioned, the website is crucial, and then build it out from there. And I did create this on Miro. If you guys want to go in, there's a link, and I'll share that out with you afterwards, and you can go in and view it. If anyone uses Miro, it's basically an online whiteboard. I highly encourage any startup to potentially invest in this. They do have a free version, a really cool whiteboard tool, especially in the virtual world. And basically, this is just mapping out based on that funnel. Marketing sits on this side, sales sits on this side, but we need to know what they do and what they need during those different stages. And that's where that priority comes in that we talked about. So if all of a sudden you're at the beginning stages and you're your startup, for sure, awareness is going to be those crucial pieces. If you haven't done that as a startup, you need to stay on the awareness piece. And that would be sales is working on prospecting, and marketing is all that traffic to the website. So prospecting, for example, in that first quadrant, what do they do? And what do they need? So when they're prospecting, what kind of things do they need? If you're looking for revenue, that's kind of crucial. So maybe one of those tools that they need is a LinkedIn Sales Navigator, right? So they go on LinkedIn, this is what I'm doing. I need to pay extra because I need the Sales Navigator tool. It's like, okay, so you plug it in there, and this helps you just evaluate it, and you just stick sticky notes on, and then you can go from there. It's a pretty cool tool. This is the other one I created. If you want to use this exercise, it's also basically maps out your process. It's that expanded version of what you saw on the previous slide. And then what we do on the grace, then we start adding in the tools. And then you can start mapping over what tool does what. So for instance, I threw up, and there's some examples here, Zoho, for example. So that's one tool that's blue, and it works for the CRM, but it also works for accounting, it works for invoicing, and then you start going, okay, so if it does all of that, that all of a sudden helps me justify, and I see where it plays into the process. Just one example that you guys can go in and duplicate and use that if you want. So those key takeaways, it's basically there's some steps that you need to take, and this will hopefully help you when you're prioritizing what processes to work on. But review your organization's business strategy, figure out where you're going to go, who are those key stakeholders, and those goals and objectives, and even what budgets and resources you currently have. Document the current business processes and then audit it. Look for those opportunities for where there's gaps, and applications, places where you can do different variations and updated templates and things like that. And then evaluate and update those processes as needed. And remember that repeatable processes help improve efficiency, quality, and communications, and communications is foundational for that success. But you need all of this to help you scale your business. Sales and marketing has to work together, and document those processes and make sure you update them. So as part of your process, add that process of when you're going to update things, especially when it comes to security and management. Maybe you do this quarterly, however that is, make sure that is part of your process. Take one process at a time, prioritize it, ask for help from your team, because maybe you don't understand how to prioritize it, but you want to go into your business advisory group. I would ask them, Okay, accounting, what is the most crucial thing I need? You know the stage I'm at. What do I need to do? Maybe HR, it's like, okay, what do I need right now? So those are the people that know your business, know what stage you're at, and are the experts. They're going to help you prioritize. And then leverage that technology for, especially when it comes to automation, there's a lot of opportunities. So filing your documents, how you're going to communicate, how you're going to automate it, and all of those other wonderful things. So that's it. Thanks. That was a lot,
Amazing.
guys. I know. I'm going to
Thank you,
stop
Laura.
sharing.
This is great. I think that, this it really goes into detail, which entrepreneurs might not really think about until they have to. So I think having, those templates that you've created is just great to have as a guide. So I want to go to, actually before that, attendee questions. Um, Two questions focused on CRM platforms. Are there reasonable ones, or are there ones that, perhaps don't break the bank, for earlier stage companies?
Oh, yes. I have evaluated a few, and there is no one right answer. And that's where you have to do that matrix. You have to figure out what works for you, and you have to put it in the context of everything. So please go through that checklist. The ones that I know and have evaluated are, well, there's a few. So I've used something called Maximizer, which is a Canadian, I believe it's Canadian. I've used that previously. It was pretty standard. The current ones that are really popular are Salesforce is pretty big. It's expensive, but it's very popular. Zoho, as I mentioned, Zoho One does, if you pay one time too, you get all of these different things. It's incredible what you have, but you have to also say, are they best of breed? Is it worth it? Like, are they just doing too much? Sometimes when they do too much, they don't do anything well. And then you get, but Zoho also is modular. So you could say, well, maybe their CRM is really good. And then you can integrate other things to it. So it doesn't mean you have to do everything. And those are the questions you need to ask. So Zoho is one. And then HubSpot is another very, very popular one. Look at their pricing. This is a crucial thing. And I don't just mean HubSpot, but look at anyone when it comes to that scalability. Sometimes they go, oh, this is free. It's like, oh, that's free. It's free for the first 100 clients. Well, if you're scaling your business and you're going up quickly, you're going to get to 1,000 clients, hopefully, or whatever. And I'm just throwing out a number quick, soon. So that's where you have to go back to your business goals. What do you want to get? Because if you invest in something that has a really great free trial, but all of a sudden the cost is going to go up exponentially, by the end of the year where you plan to be, then you have to rethink it. So don't purchase for the now, purchase for where you want to be. So that is one of the key takeaways. But HubSpot, so Salesforce, Zoho, Maximizer was one. I know Dynamics 365 we have experience with as well. There's Pipedrive is the other one that I came across, which is really interesting. There are so many of them. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't really want to focus on the specific tech, because you could just type in CRM, but you have to know how to evaluate it for your needs, if that helps.
So it comes down to first really understanding what your needs are, right? And that stems from understanding who your customers are, because those needs depend on how you're serving your customers, how you're selling to your customers, and who those customers are. So I'd say, kind of going back to one of the earlier questions about how to prioritize, if you're just starting off, understand your customers, number one. Number two, understand your strategy, where you want to go. And then number three, find the technology, build the processes that align with your strategy and align with who your customers are. Did I get that right, Laura?
You got it. You are awesome. That is super. And understand, like you mentioned, how are you selling to people? And that's where that playbook comes in, because maybe you're a tech company that is just going to be, you don't have a major sales force, right? Like, this is not something you're going to go out. It's going to be mostly online generated. So all of a sudden now your website is going to be crucial, right? Like that piece, you have to really think through that process. And maybe you end up having more IT processes in place because of all of those things. So you have to know what you're selling and how you're selling and who those people are. You nailed it. That's exactly it.
Amazing.
Mhm.
So now I want to go back to a point that you made about there was something on your key takeaways about updating your processes regularly. And I want to go back to that because in some of our previous sessions, we talked about, transitioning from a founder to a CEO. So for a founder who's kind of in the midst of transitioning to be that CEO role because they're scaling their companies, what advice do you have for these individuals to update these processes, these templates regularly, or empower their team to do so? And how might that differ for a founder or a CEO that is coming with a marketing and sales background versus one that is coming from a tech background, who doesn't have that kind of marketing and sales experience? What advice do you have for individuals like that?
That's a tough one in the fact that it all depends, right? Like it really depends on your product, what processes you currently have, how the environment is changing, right? If all of a sudden there's so many things, and maybe that's what you do is you create that critical list of when you evaluate it. So maybe the minimum is I'm going to evaluate everything at least once a year. Right, that's going to be part of my strategy, and I'm going to tap into my business advisors. But then maybe beyond that, you got to go, okay, so here's the criteria if something happens, if we add in a new product, or maybe if something seriously like COVID, when COVID hit, that's a crisis. That's something where you need to go back. You need to evaluate all of them. And it was a lot of work. People had to change their target personas. Everything went online. All of those things, maybe supply chain issues, are something you need to rethink things and what processes. So you have to evaluate your current business strategy, and it all stems from business strategy. So if that changes, you need to go back and say, okay, so what processes are affected by this change, and then evaluate it. If you're not, um, it's not so much if you're a sales marketing expert or not on what processes you need to evaluate, because it's just based on your business, right? You have to sit back from your business and think of it, on its own. It's who you talk to and who you ask for support based on your experience. So if you're an IT person, you can do that yourself, but you still need to do it. If you're not an IT person, you need to tap into your IT support. If you're a sales and marketing person, or say if you're not a sales and marketing person, right? Whoever is leading your sales team, they're the ones that you're going to go to. They're your strategic advisors and say, okay, you know what? This is the situation as a CEO, right? From a founder to CEO, you got to think of yourself like that. Even if you're still a founder, start to move towards that mindset of being a CEO. And you go, okay, so who's going to help me with sales? Who's going to help advise me on this marketing? And I go back only because that's primarily my focus, and worked in an agency and work internally here at the city, is knowing that if I was a founder and I'm going to a CEO, I'm going to go to my marketing agency who I've hired because they have a strategic advisor, because I need that, as well as they're going to know what to do and when to do it. So if something happens, I'm going to tap into them right away and say, okay, listen, I need to figure this out. It needs to change. I'm also going to make sure that that advisor will advise me if something needs to change, right? So they're going to have their insights in their eyes, and I will have to trust them to be able to bring that forward. But you have to be the holder of the business strategy. You have to know where you want to go and what you want to do. And that's going to affect when you update the processes. So it's no matter what your background is, who you talk to or what you do yourself, but it's your business strategy that drives the what needs to be done and when. Does that
Gotcha.
help? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the attendees who are here, please feel free to submit your questions in the chat and make sure you put it to all panelists, and then I'll read out your questions. Now, Laura, when you mentioned, making these changes, how do you evaluate which changes are necessary? And I ask that because I've been part of organizations where, like it's especially at the early stages of startup versus scale up, kind of, in this middle ground. um, it might be, the customer feedback that you get might be very influential. But how do you tell this is a fundamental change that we need to make in our processes versus this is an outlier case that we're dealing with from a particularly difficult customer? So, like how do you kind of evaluate, hey, this case, we need to change our processes versus we just need to make an exception because this is an outlier situation?
That is a really good question. It will always be an it depends. And I would first and foremost, if you're not sure, seek out your advice from your advisors, right? That's legal, HR, because you want to know if it's going to be illegal and a high risk situation. So please always seek those people out unless you're in that field yourself, and then you'll know. So that is the biggest thing. However, if it's constantly happening, then that's when absolutely you need to go, okay, there's something wrong with our process. It's not just one person, right? That's kind of at the very low end of the feedback. But all of a sudden, maybe within a month, you're having people come back and they're having trouble with their shopping cart or whatever, like there's happening, or they're this feedback saying that nobody got back to me. I don't understand why this is happening. There's no follow up. Then you're kind of going, okay, that's consistency. First and foremost, that's where you go back and you do that evaluation. Is it not a process problem? Maybe it's a person problem. Is it always with one person that this is a challenge? Then it's not a process. You have to go back and really look through that lens. But if all of a sudden that gap is there, then you kind of go, there's a gap. They just don't understand. I haven't communicated effectively, and then maybe you update your playbook. You also want to make sure you hire and empower your team to bring forward these things. They're going to be your eyes and ears, right? Because as you grow, maybe it's just maybe it's just three or four of you right now, and you're at that point where you can just hang out, and every week you have these water cooler conversations and talk about it, and then it's organic. But you have to think scalability, right? So that's where the playbook, that's where the process come in place. But that culture you have to cultivate, use culture too much, is that you hire the right people, so you know who you need to hire, and you encourage them to look for solutions, look for new ways of doing things. A lot of tech companies kind of get that because it's that reiterating idea, but just, and from even a process standpoint, just say, hey, if there's a gap, bring it forward and let them build the case. Now they feel empowered. Now they're your eyes and ears, and they feel like they're part of the solution. I think that's a really important part about knowing just the first step to figuring out what processes, where there's gaps. Does that
And
help? Did I?
yeah,
Yeah.
of course. And I guess that's the difficulty of being that CEO and leading the venture, because you have to balance the steadiness with the responsiveness, right? Too responsive, you're going all over the place, and not really focusing on a strategy. Whereas too steady, you're not reacting quick enough to the evolutions that might be necessary. So kind of as the CEO, you kind of have to be that leader to balance that, and that's where leaning on the advisors, as you mentioned, helps as well, because they can help the leader, as the CEO, as the attendees that we have here, to really make those decisions, to look ahead and kind of foresee how the situation might play out if they were to lean one way versus another.
Right. And that's where it's that goals. Have that really handy as a CEO, and to make sure that you are moving along in the way you're supposed to be moving along. Does that process, is it critical right now to my timeline, to my processes? Like, is there a high risk, medium, and low? Very similar to when you do a website audit. I don't know, to use a parallel in that world, is you kind of go through and you do an audit and it spits out all the things you need to do based on best practices. But you kind of go, okay, so what are those red flags? What are those things I really need to do that are going to really make that effort to impact? If I do this right now, is it mitigating my risk? Because if it's a high risk, you've got to do it if it's illegal. Is it helping me move forward faster? Or is it, just a nice to have? Those nice to haves, and that's where as the CEO, the founder, needs to kind of sit back, seek advice, but you don't want to be calling them up every single time. You want to learn to figure out and how to evaluate these themselves yourself. So have a really clear business strategy, and know and try to make those decisions on your own. So I do encourage, if you have advisors, to help you, that they will empower you to make those decisions on your own as often as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to switch gears here because you mentioned that, it's imperative for sales and marketing to communicate and to understand each other's processes. Um, Otherwise, it doesn't quite work out. The customer experience kind of falls apart as they transition, from the your marketing team and your sales team. So in addition to that kind of interaction between the two teams, or perhaps, if you're just a small team, the two individuals that you might have, um, how important is it to also have that communication channel between, say, sales and the product team, or sales and the R&D team, or marketing and product, and vice versa, and all the combinations? How critical is it more critical to have those communication channels between sales and marketing, or is it equally critical to have that between sales slash marketing and product, or R&D, or um, the folks who might not be as client facing as the sales and marketing?
Good question. It would really depend on what product you're selling and what stage you're at, right? Because if you're mature, well, you're all in the scale up stage. So things are, for sure, the products are getting developed all the time. So I think, you're obviously going to need that communication a lot more frequently and close. Sales and marketing are kind of like a brother-sister relationship. It never changes. Like, we work together, always to push that out, to market it. It's just, it doesn't matter what stage you're at. It's this brother and sister situation, right? So what then happens is you've got your admin, like they're always your HR and your invoicing, things like that, because they need to have some line of communication, but it's not critical. Usually they just, if it's the processes are in place, then it should be a well-oiled machine and it doesn't need to update regularly. You probably, the once a year you talk to your accountant and your bookkeeping, unless something changes. R&D and your product line, because that is your product. That's what sales is selling. If there's anything that changes in R&D and product, you have to tell them right away. Like, it more so it's an upline communication to sales and marketing. And that would typically come up at the strategic VP level, and then it trickles down from there, right? Because, but if they're just working on things, what you would want to make sure is that they communicate finished product, but they also want to communicate roadmaps. But it's pretty high level. You don't need to get into the nitty gritty. And I'm probably talking more from a bigger company. However, sales really doesn't care of all the details. As a sales person and working with so many salespeople, they're like, I just want to sell. I want to make money. I got to get the job done. This is like this mentality, right? You just give me the information I need. So it really isn't, you just feed it up to me. And then marketing needs to know kind of the same thing, but they're just promoting it. So you better make sure that you tell marketing exactly what the roadmap is, what all of that information is, give them all the specs. It's more the what information that they need to know, so that they can put it out there. So it's important. Roadmap is important, but also any new developments is important. But please send it up to the strategic level. Don't be sending it to the junior team. Like, don't just throw it all out there to everybody, because we don't know what to do with it. It has to come down from strategy. So I would say, first and foremost, as the scale up, have your R&D working closely with you, the CEO. And then if you're playing, the management area and you're still managing your strategy, then you feed that back. So then you would communicate with your VP of sales and VP of marketing. It's like, how are we going to position ourselves with this? And so that now, as you grow, maybe there's different ways to do that, but that's what I would suggest for those. Any other departments that you can think of that from a communication standpoint? Always,
Not
and
off the
the other thing, John, is the feedback piece, which I really didn't talk about much. And has to be a little bit more circular. And you always want to make sure that you put those processes in place to collect that feedback. Marketing, and how is that going to be? And that would be where marketing maybe has a feedback form on their website that people can do it, that it comes in, and who does it go to and who's collecting it? You have to figure that out. Sales also has um, Sales also has the ability to collect it through phone calls or feedback from there, and there has to be a place where you collect all that information. Then it should go up to the CEO first, and that will go back to R&D, right? Like if a product's not working, right? Like that is crucial. I can't even enforce how crucial that is, as far as, especially at a scale up stage where you require that feedback, especially if it's an alpha or beta, whatever that is, that you need to have those in place, and always, whether it's in the process of if there's a gap, why they're not purchasing it, or even afterwards in that loyalty nurturing stage. So huge.
Yeah, it's a two-way street, right?
Yeah.
Because if the sales and the marketing teams or individuals are speaking with the customers, they know what the demand is, right? They know what the questions are. And that kind of has to go back to the strategy and then to the product side of things, to make sure that whatever is being sold is actually meeting the needs of the customers, right? So it's kind of, product has to communicate, through strategy and then through the sales and marketing so that things are communicated accurately to the customers, and then the other way around to make sure that the product continues to grow, to meet and solve the problems of the customers.
Oh, and I'm sure most of our attendees too would understand the experience of being frustrated if they give feedback and they don't see results, right? Like talk about amazing. We live in this world where people want experiences. They want to feel like they're heard, and then they're part of this organization. That's how we get these loyal customers, right? So if you feel like they're part of your process, they're going to stay on and they're going to talk about you. And we know how important testimonials are, for any organization. So, for example, remember there's been a couple times where I have sent in feedback and seen immediate results. When I had the bike shop, we used to have a company, a Canadian company. It's been bought out and changed, but Sugoi. And I remember as one of their customers, as the vendor, giving feedback to their product line, and not a word of a lie, saw it changed in the next lineup. It was I became this, oh my word, they hear me. They're a big company. They have great quality. They're listening, and they're applying those changes. And it was an incredible experience for me, but also the fact that they would have had to have managed that feedback process, right? It went from the sales rep up to the sales management, however they did it, and it went back to R&D, and it went back to actually the manufacturing, and it came around. So you need to make sure all of those touch points, all of those stakeholders have to get that feedback, and so you've got to figure out systems to do it. But the translation of what that is for the experience of the customer can be incredible. So I would say that it should be one of those key processes that you put in place right away.
I love what you said about, you have to put that key process and that system in place, because when we think about a startup, if you are one person, two people, three people on a team, that often you might take that for granted, right? That communication. So if you think about the process in the system and you have that in place from an early stage, as you grow, that feedback will continue. You can continue to solve the problems for the customers and be responsive. But if you kind of take that for granted and don't build the systems and the processes, as you continue to grow, you grow from a three-person team to 5 to 10, and you don't have that figured out, things are going to start falling apart. You're going to start to see a bit more churn with the customers. And then you have to scramble to move a larger team to put a system in place for more people and get more people to adopt something, which is different from what they're accustomed to doing already in their day-to-day workflow. So if you think about it, I think you mentioned get the platform that um, works for where you want to go. It's kind of, I think about the analogy of dress for the job that you want. That's kind of what you're doing, as if you're just starting off, you're building the systems in place, so that as you scale and as you grow into a larger company, that's already in place. You don't have to figure it out later and scramble to move a larger organization towards where you need to go.
And you also mentioned about the growing company, and that comes back to when do you evaluate your processes? If you're going through a big growth stage, I would be sitting back and going, how is this affecting my current processes? Do I have the right ones in place? Do I have the right tools? And you do need to do that. And if you're scaling quickly, it just it might be pretty quick a turnover. But if that process is in place on how to evaluate it, if you already have an existing playbook and marketing processes, it's much easier to reiterate that and build on that than all of a sudden going, oh my goodness, I'm scaling so quickly. I have nothing, no starting point. So really start with something, and then grow from there and revisit it if you've gone through a big growth stage, for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. So I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat. If anybody has any additional questions, please feel free to pop them in there. But for
I
now, oh yeah, Laura.
Oh, sorry. I think some of may have come back to me
Perfect.
individually. And somebody's mentioning, oh, that there is something called Freshworks. Oh, I've heard of them. And they offer $2,500 in credits for each of the services for startups. And that being said, okay, that's a specific example, but a good point to check to see if you're a startup, to see if there's any available support based on your industry or your where you are in your stage. There might be things available, so definitely reach out and ask for those specifics. That should be part of your evaluation as well, and a really good point. And then also that online tools provide startup. Oh, yes. So to continue from that they don't always advertise that on their websites. So contact the organization to see if they do offer some support. That's a really great idea. Thank you. And some other people have asked about the recording. So yes, this recording is going to be available afterwards, and the presentation handout will be available as well. I'll include those Miro links as a separate link, so you'll have them. They'll be embedded in the PDF though, so you can have that. If you have any challenges with getting into the Miro, reach out to me directly and I can help with that as well. So if there's any other questions, I'll just check to see if they've um, okay. Okay, someone's asking about hiring salespeople. How do you balance the aggressiveness of achieving sales versus keeping with company culture and not just pushing sales? Really great question. And that is part of making sure it's in your playbook at the beginning. Really know who you are. And it goes back to even the very start, like as a startup. Don't forget who you are and your vision and values. Document it. I know one of my favorite examples, and it is on my website, and I will just drop in my website if anyone wants. There's blogs and other stuff on there. There's a book on communications, or Patagonia, Yvon Chouinard, and he wrote about his organization and getting started. And I remember, and I did a thing about how communications, basically lessons learned from his book. And one of the key things he did, he stepped down from being CEO and went out and communicated to all the different departments his mission and vision to make sure everyone understood that part, that culture, um, why that organization, why he started in the first place. He actually stepped down to do it. That's how important it was for him to do that. And so I say, um, mostly is that you're on par with where, these big guys are understanding that importance of this. So know who you are, what you want to represent in that mission, and make sure it's clearly communicated on your website, to your employee handbooks, and even out in your sessions. Like if you, as you start to build out, that they know who you are. It's crucial when you have meetings. It doesn't really matter. I know when, and it's loosely tied to this, but when I at the bike shop, we had a race team. And my biggest things, and this goes back to influencers and things like that, I wanted them to know specifically that it wasn't about winning the races. It was about representing the organization and who we are and be nice out there. What ended up happening is they ended up still winning, but they always represented well. So we had the right people on the team. And that's what you want to make sure, that you get the right people on your team, the right people on your bus. And then what happens is you've clearly communicated to them, then they start being influencers within the organization, and that culture will be maintained, and they're still going to drive the sales. So it doesn't have to be an either or. I hope that helped answer that question. See if anyone else. I think I think we're good, John.
Okay. Well, if that's everything, then we'll give it a couple more seconds if anybody has any lingering questions. But thank you so much, Laura, for the fantastic presentation and all the information that you've provided. And for all of you who are in the attendees, next week we have our upcoming session, Going Global. Even if you haven't thought about going global with your company, uh, I encourage you to attend the session because it could be very relevant, and you might have the opportunity to go global very quickly, even if you don't have the intent. So please join us for that session next week. We look forward to seeing you. I saw one more question come in. Do any of the CRM tools have a RACI matrix component to it, Laura?
It's not interesting. That sounds like a that I had to actually look up that acronym to make sure I had it right. And if that's the case, if I had to look that up, my understanding is responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. If that's the right acronym, I'm not sure how that applies. I don't think I understand fully what that means for the CRM. So is it responsible, accountable? I'd have to look into that. If you want to take that offline, Michael, and I'm happy to do that. My email again, you guys, or you can respond. I will send out the handout. Um, I'm not sure. You would have to actually evaluate that and look into it. If you aren't sure and it doesn't show it on the website when you're evaluating the CRM, Kathleen had mentioned, just reach out to support. And they have whole sales teams, and I'm sure they'll walk it through any of those specific questions that you might have.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
definitely encourage anybody here who's listening, and also those of you who are watching the recording, to reach out to Laura. Her contact information is on our website, so please feel free to reach out if you want to dive a bit deeper into any of the information that was presented today, or if you have a specific question about your unique situation and your business in particular. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat. I think we are good to go. Thank you, Laura, for being here. Big round of applause. And thank you to all of you who are in the audience. Hope to see you next time for the Going Global session.
Great. Thanks, John. Thanks everyone for coming.
Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Bye now.
Take care. Bye.